talking about video game design today and some of the tools that you can use, but also how game design has been integrated into other disciplines, not just software entertainment. So, first thing I like to do, because I like numbers and facts, I'm going to bring up some ESRB statistics here about video games. Now, the ESRB is the Entertainment Software Rating Board. Whenever you buy a game and you see like a mature rating on it or a teen rating, that's from the ESRB. They're the ones who do that, kind of like the MPAA and the Film Association. So the statistics I really liked here were that 67% of U.S. households play video games. Now, this was in 2010, so I went to the Census Bureau and looked up how many U.S. households there are as of 2010, and there's roughly 114 million households. And when you break down 67% of that, that's about 76 million households that play video games. So you can kind of get an idea. Games are no longer like a basement pastime for nerdy people. It's become a mainstream thing that the majority of Americans enjoy now. So it's become a significant market, and the industry has seen a big boom in the last 10 years, which brings me to this next number. In 2009, video games pulled in a revenue of $10.5 billion. And if I recall, 2009 was the first year that video game sales outdid box office ticket sales. Now, that's just box office ticket sales. I don't know if that includes Blu-ray, DVD sales, and all that, but it's still a pretty big thing because the gaming industry more or less directly competes with the gaming or with the film industry. And it was a pretty big deal when they finally exceeded the box office ticket sales. But that's a lot of money, and it just shows you that there's a lot of investment going into games, and that it's an industry that continues to grow and employ people and provide new opportunities to people who are interested in joining that field. Which kind of goes to my next one about jobs. These numbers came from the Entertainment Software Association, which is very credible. In 2009, they put a number out that basically said American jobs that they're projected to be provided by entertainment software companies in 2009 is 250,000, so 250,000. I was doing some reading around further on that, and I think the new number is by 2013 they expect 500,000 U.S. jobs to be in the entertainment software industry, so 500,000, and that's pretty big. I mean, especially considering video games in the 70s, 80s, 90s were just like small businesses basically of a handful of people just programming and making games from the ground up. It's very much changed. The average salary for direct employees in the entertainment software industry is $92,000 roughly. Now, in terms of job opportunities, there's so many different things involved in game development now, be it audio engineering or even cinematography and things like that. You're getting some of these things that you normally saw in film are coming into games now because they're becoming more narrative and more of a storytelling kind of medium. So it's not just for game programmers, it's not just for 3D modelers anymore. There's opportunities for all sorts of skill sets in the gaming industry now, and they pay pretty well, which is why it's a increasingly popular field. People are getting paid well, and the people who go into it really enjoy games, and they're doing something they really like. And you especially see this in younger people in high school and college, and because young people are the ones who grew up with a lot of these fancy games, and they're getting more and more into it. And where gaming, I also want to talk about in this webinar, not just about the video game industry, but about all sorts of other industries that are starting to implement game development ideas. And what this is it's called gamification, which is a term some of you may have heard, may have not. But basically, gamification, the definition is the use of game design techniques, game thinking, and game mechanics to enhance non-game contexts. So basically, it's taking the ideas that you apply in video game design and putting them in other disciplines. And a couple of examples of this are, for instance, in architecture. I'm hoping this page will boot up for me here. It's kind of running some Flash or something, so... But in architecture, for instance, people are using the Unity game engine to create interactive walkthroughs of, say, their model. And this is pretty rough. I just found this on somebody's blog. But I thought it was interesting because I can move around using WASD. I can look around with my mouse. And this was just a model somebody built in Revit Architecture, which is a CAD program by Autodesk. And they brought it into Unity and they created scripts. So I walk up here and the door opens for me. If I walk up to this wall, I can actually press E and change the material of the wall interactively. Now, as an architect, if you approached a client with something like this, you know, and you really polished it and made it look real good and maybe use 3ds Max to put some nice materials and everything on the building, you could really get a very realistic looking product to your client and allow them to actually walk through and test out different, you know, ideas on the walls. You know, I want a different material on these walls and things of that nature. And what is also cool about this is running the Unity web player. You can just embed this on a website if you wanted, which is how I found this. You could even export it into an executable and things of that nature and allow people to run it. So this is an example of kind of gamification in, say, the architecture industry. You're utilizing game design concepts to bring your model to life and allow people to walk around, and you're running scripts to allow the user to press E and change materials on the walls here. It's very basic, but you can kind of see the potential there, especially if you put a lot of time and development into it. You know, a couple of the other areas that people are using game design technologies in and game design methodology are in engineering and manufacturing, for creating like interactive environments to test mechanical products in and things of that nature. I also was reading up, TV production companies are starting to actually use game engines to develop what they call machinima or machinima. I don't know how to spell it exactly, but it's basically filmmaking within a real-time 3D environment using 3D technologies. A lot of the actions that occur within a machinima film are script-driven or driven by AI, artificial intelligence. You know, you have to program that. But an example of this, some of you may or may not be familiar with it, is there's an online series that utilized the Halo engine, the video game Halo. It's called Red vs. Blue. The guys who do that basically script their own actions that occur and set up cameras in different places to create pretty much a comedy sketch using Halo characters. So that's kind of an example of machinima, and that's also an example of gamification, is creating some sort of narrative comedy using a video game engine. You also see gamification in social media quite extensively, especially on Facebook. And while Facebook itself may not use like game design techniques, the fact that they allow people to develop games and host them on their site and integrate it with Facebook is very heavily a sort of gamification idea, because things like Farmville and Yoville or whatever different social media game you want to play, it allows you to incorporate with Facebook, and you can actually buy, you know, in-game money and spend it on stuff, and you can share your leaderboards or whatever with all your friends on Facebook. You can play it on your iPhone, all sorts of stuff. That's kind of an example of gamification as well. So the reason game design is important is because it's not just for gaming anymore. It's increasingly being used in many different areas. And, you know, I found a couple studies about it, and some of the things that interested me, it was a study on advertising and marketing and gamification in marketing. They took roughly 2,000 people between ages 18 and 44, found that 58% of the group said it's important for brands to be fun and playful. An example they provided in the study was the vegetable company Green Giant. They had a marketing campaign where Farmville players could earn in-game cash by purchasing Green Giant products. 70% of the people who were aware of the ad said that they had a positive view of the advertising. And it actually worked really well for Green Giant. Just the fact that they incorporated some sort of bonus to buying their product and you get something in Farmville. That's a very loose way of kind of gamifying your marketing, but it worked really well for them. And you're starting to see that more and more. You're starting to see people do promotions like, play our Flash game on our website and win points for whatever. But that's the idea of gamification, is you turn something into a game and people are interested in doing it. And it's being studied more and more because of games like World of Warcraft, for instance, where people are investing hours and hours upon hours to overcoming simple goals to accomplish some sort of achievement. And, they're trying to look at, why is it that people are willing to spend their free time doing something within this game just to unlock an achievement? There's a certain factor about that makes people competitive as well as motivated to do something. So they also look at, how do you bring this into the workplace and make a job that might otherwise be mundane or redundant, how do you turn that into something more of a game that your workers will be motivated to work and work really hard and accomplish a project? So that's why game design is no longer just important for creating software entertainment. People who design games have also been, the guy who was in head of Siri, the Apple AI project, he was a game designer, and they actually brought him in to do the whole Siri thing to make it easy and fun for people to use it. So the game design methodology now is being applied in tons of disciplines. It's no longer just for entertainment software, which is why it's important that schools and educational institutions start adopting it seriously, and a lot of them have. So one of the tools, the main tool I'm going to be talking about today for game design and being able to incorporate gamification across multiple disciplines here is Unity, which you just saw this little demonstration of this architecture thing here. This is running on the Unity web player, which was made by Unity and is created through the Unity game engine. Unity is essentially just a video game engine, but they have a software platform called Unity 3D that runs the game engine, and you can do whatever you need to do in it. This is basically what it looks like. It looks pretty much like any of your other 3D modeling applications like 3D Studio or Maya, Mudbox, etc. You got your viewport, and then you got a couple things like your project menus and your hierarchy menus. But this is a drag and drop interface, which is so far removed from how people used to make games back in the day, which was just coding like C++ all day from the ground up. The industry standard now for even companies like EA is to license out a game engine and use that game engine to make your game. One of the most famous ones is the Unreal Engine, which is ridiculously expensive. It's really good, but companies like EA use that to create their games because creating an engine from the ground up takes a lot of work and effort, especially nowadays. You got to worry about physics and all this crazy stuff. But with Unity, you have a game engine at your disposal, and it's really easy to hop in and just throw something in there and create a real basic game real quickly. One thing I wanted to look at was how Unity's being used in the game industry, and primarily it's being used for a lot of cell phone games and kind of just indie games, people who may not have a budget, but they got Unity and they were able to just make a real basic game, get their name out there. And some of these games, they get on the App Store and they sell them and they actually make money off of them. So you're able to put games on the Xbox Live Marketplace, the PS3 network, the Wii, Android, iOS, Windows, Mac, Linux. You're able to go with pretty much any platform on Unity. So whatever you want to do, you can basically do it. And so Unity is a very popular tool for creating these games, especially on a low budget, because most game engines are really expensive to buy, and most people who are trying to get a foot into the game industry can't afford that. And most people who would be trying to gamify their current industry, be it manufacturing or architecture or anything like that, they're not necessarily going to want to spend 7 figures on the Unreal Engine to show off their architecture model. So that's why Unity is a real good choice for things outside of game design as well. So anyway, let me jump back into Unity here. Whoops. So basically I'm just going to show a couple things here, just kind of how easy it is to just do something very quickly and from the ground up. So if I want to make a real basic level, for instance, and I'm kind of touching on this because I had a question on the last webinar I did about whether or not you can do levels in Unity, because some engines don't come with anything like a level editor or anything like that, and you have to use some other program to do it. Unity can actually handle that pretty well. You can create flat terrains, and what I can do is modify this terrain in such a way. Let me go ahead and just do a preset here. It's real rough, but it's something to work with. I can add textures to it if I want. These are real basic. I'm just going to choose stuff so you get the idea. Oh man, I got so many textures here. Oh yeah, I loaded a bit too many in here. Well, anyway, I'll just leave it as this dusty little hilly area. But anyway, in Unity, I mean, you just saw I created a terrain and just pretty much beveled it, leveled it out, and all this stuff with a couple clicks of a button. And it's real basic, but you can use your terrain editing tools to do even more, like raise certain areas, do whatever you need to do with it. And it's not, typically you're not going to exactly use the in-game editor to create a map within your game. A lot of people use something like 3D Studio Max or Maya or Mudbox, whatever you've got, but I'm only touching on it because I had a question from some people who didn't have the budget for all these 3D modeling applications and were wondering if Unity could do levels. So yes, Unity can do levels, and they can do it very easily and quickly. You can add skyboxes as well if you want to. So it looks pretty realistic. You can add lighting and everything like that. But let me go ahead and kind of kill that guy. And in Unity, you use game objects, which is basically empty spots in 3D space that can be any number of things. So what I could do is create just, let's say, a cube. Let me focus on this guy. This is a normal game object with just items applied to it, like a mesh filter, a collider, and a mesh render. So that's how we get the gray appearance of a box. And it also has a collider, so if it touches something, it won't fall through it. Now with this box, I can also scale it down if I want to make like a platform of some sort. Pretty big platform, but that will work. And I can add a character controller simply, which is built into Unity's functionality. Maybe I want a first-person controller. I can drop him right there. And up front, he's just a little capsule, but that's because they expect you to just add your own model later. But for now, it has all the functionality of being able to move around and everything. And if I play, everything's black because I don't have a lighting source, but I can actually move around and jump. And it was just as easy as me dropping something in there. So like that architecture demonstration I showed in the Unity player, that was basically a guy brought in his Revit model and he dropped one of these first-person controllers in there and he can move around. He did some extra scripting, like when you press E at the wall, it changes the texture, but it's extremely easy to just hop in and throw a first-person controller in there and really get a basic feel down for what you're doing. I noticed it was really dark, so I'm just going to throw in a directional light, which if you're used to like Max or anything like that, it's basically like a sun. It's just a real bright light source. And that way when I hit play, I can kind of see what I'm looking at. And got this ugly blue sky, but I'm not going to get too far into that. And you notice how my guy didn't fall through the earth. It's because the colliders are generated automatically in Unity, so you don't have to worry about programming all that, which I found when I was learning computer science that was really hard to do collision data, but I was pretty excited when I found out Unity did that by itself. The other thing that's really cool with Unity is it comes with its own script editor called MonoDevelop, and it has its own API that's based on JavaScript, and it's really easy to learn, especially if you already know some programming. But I have a couple of scripts here. Let me go ahead and open up one of my other scenes I had that was more in depth than this. This was just something I did a little while back for a YouTube demonstration. So see, I had like a skybox and everything. I did all this fancy stuff here. But on my first person controller over here, if I play my game real quick, I'm able to shoot a fireball by left clicking. I program it so, you know, it hits the box and the box rolls around. It also explodes on an impact. And this is all stuff I had to script. It's very basic, but I think it gets the idea across, and explodes when it runs out of life. It's extravagant. But anyway, so I stopped playing, but I had to apply a bunch of scripts to my character controller to make that happen, and they're all over here. And I can look at them in my list here and say I want to open up my projectile script. What this is going to do is open up MonoDevelop, which is Unity's script editor. It might take a second because I'm running like 6 different 3D programs here. My computer's bogged down. And in MonoDevelop, it's just like if you're used to programming at all, it basically looks like any other sort of, you know, programming application. And you don't have to use MonoDevelop. You can use anything if you have, you know, a certain programming program that you like to use. I forget what they call them, sorry. But basically, you know, I scripted this. This is just my command for firing the weapon. But this is what they call a Unity script. It's basically a loose version of JavaScript that has the Unity API involved. And I actually find the Unity API is really easy to work with. And I wasn't familiar with JavaScript before I started working in Unity. I was familiar with Java, but not JavaScript. But I caught on to it real quick. And Unity has a very comprehensive API reference. If you go to, I mean, you can find every single function they got and learn how to use it and what it does. And I find that to be extremely valuable when you're doing these things, because when, as any of you have programmed know, it's a lot of just puzzle problem solving. You run into an issue, you got to figure it out, and having the Unity API at your disposal is just wonderful for this. In terms of scripting, in programming, Unity runs, you can either program in Boost, C# or JavaScript, which, as I was saying, is more Unity script. As far as C++ goes, I've read that you can enable C++ scripting for Unity. I haven't done it myself, but apparently there's a way to do it. If you read around the Unity forums, everybody says you can do it. So, you know, if you're into C++ and you're teaching C++ in your class, you should be able to make that work. Next thing I wanted to kind of show was the interoperability of different 3D modeling programs with Unity. For instance, where'd I have it? My Max building. This was a real just crazy basic building I made in 3D Studio Max. And I just exported this straight out from Max and brought it into Unity, really no problem. It exports really easily, and there's not much to worry about. You basically just make an FBX file and you toss it into Unity and you're good to go. And it's pretty large, but I can scale that down, I guess. You know, it's real basic. It's just something I did real quick, and I already had that in here. But, you know, now it's in my game, and if I hit play, you know, I can see it in here, and I don't have any colliders on it right now, I don't think, so my fireball kind of goes through. But it's easy to just drag and drop it in there. Let me do something from the ground up, though. Where's my 3ds Max? Okay, this little Arbor Press thing here was created in Autodesk Inventor, which is a mechanical engineering program. And I imported this into 3ds Max as is. And what I can do is I can just go up to Max and export out as an FBX file. And if I go into my Unity directory and throw in my assets. Let's call it Arbor Press. I'll be able to toss this into my Unity project, and it's gonna have to update real quick. I'm able to toss this in my Unity project. I can see it here now. I can just drag and drop it in. Of course, it's tiny compared to everything else, but it's real easy to just grab something from Max and bring it in. The reason it doesn't have textures is not a failure of Unity's functionality. It's a problem with with Autodesk Material shaders for their newest version, like 2012 and 2011, have these like shader 3.0s or whatever, and those are not interpreted by Unity straight out. So you would want to bring something like this into 3ds Max and then put materials on it and then bring it into Unity so you can make it look good. But you know, it was really simple for me to do this. I just took something that was done in Inventor, I bring it into Max, I just take it out of Max as an FBX file, which Unity can read, and then you just pop it into Unity and you can use it. Other thing I was going to show was dropping a character from Maya. Now this is just a basic, what do you call it, character rig with like a skeleton and everything like that. And I didn't make this, as just something that came with Maya. But it's pretty simple to bring this right into Unity, and Unity actually reads Maya binary, so you don't even have to go with an FBX or anything like that. You can just pop the Maya binary right into Unity and it should be okay. In terms of the skeleton structure, if you have any animations, from what I've been reading, you want to bake them out in Maya before you bring them into Unity. But once it's in Unity, you'll be able to reference the skeleton and everything with your scripts and make sure your animations move properly, you know, so it's pretty seamless. But I'll go ahead and pop this into my project, export all, and go ahead and find my level here. So level assets. And I'm just going to leave it as a Maya binary instead of a FBX. You could do an FBX and that would work, but I think it's pretty cool that you can just have Maya's functionality go straight over to really any questions asked. So I'm kind of lagging here. I'm at 80% RAM usage. Okay, so my Maya rig's in here now, or in my project, and if I want, I can just drag and drop it in here. Of course, bigger than everything, but that's all in the scaling, and it's pretty much in there just like that. So it's easy to bring it in. And like I was saying, if you have any animations, you want to bake them out in Maya first, and you know, then you can use your scripts. You can apply a script to this and, you know, say when my character moves forward, start this animation, etc. So there's a lot of powerful functionality to it. You know, if you wanted to add a script, all you'd have to do is, if you had one made up, you would just drag and drop it on the asset, and now that script's applied to that specific asset here. Of course, I don't really have a script for this guy, so I'm not going to worry about that. I just wanted to show how you can just drop a rig right into Unity, really no problem or no questions asked. Next thing I want to show was kind of more on the Autodesk side of things with the, I'm going back to the architecture, you know, side of things. And I have Revit here, which is a 3D CAD program, and this is just the getting started house from Revit. It's just a basic file that comes with the program, but I can actually just export this guy straight out as an FBX file and throw it in my assets here. Just call it Revit building. I'll go ahead and save it, and that's going to save it into my Unity project, and then I'll be able to go into Unity and just drag that in there. Might take a second to load because it's got to update the assets. And again, you're going to see here when I bring it in, it's going to have the materials taken off of it, and that's just an issue with the Autodesk material libraries for 2011 and 2012. I don't know if it's getting worked out or not, but typically the best best practice here is to bring the building into 3ds Max first, do all your material mapping and everything, and then drop it into Unity. So I can drop this in here, and now I can see it real small, but let me scale that. And, you know, if I wanted to, kind of like that guy did in that other demonstration I showed you, I could take my first person controller and I could drop him up here and allow him to walk around through the house. If I can find my guy. But it's real easy to just bring it in and start using it right off the bat. And when you bring things in, you can also tell it to generate colliders and so on and so forth. Yeah, like right now, I don't have colliders on it, so I can just walk through everything. But if I generate colliders on it, I'd be able to walk up and I could take the door off and walk through the house and check it out and everything. So that's pretty much how that one guy did that demonstration I showed you on the web with the Unity player. I just wanted to kind of show that real quick. I showed the object from Inventor. Kind of last thing I wanted to show is just how, let me move my guy back down here. Whoops, kind of threw him way far away. Play my game again. Just, yeah, okay. The other thing is just how easy it is to build out your executable. You know, I can go ahead and just go to build settings, and I can look at my test level here, and I can either build out for the web player like we saw earlier. I can do PC or Mac. I do Android. Now, different ones of these require a different license. Like I don't have the license for the 360 or iOS, but I could make out for Android and PC or the web platform, and you know, I could just build and run it, and I could just save it to my desktop. It's gonna just go real quick, hopefully real quick. If it doesn't, I'll just cancel it. But you just build it out and you can play test it right off the bat, which is really cool because if you're actually doing game design or you're using this for anything else, it's always nice to have what you would call like a beta or an alpha, being able to put out an executable and maybe give it to somebody and say, hey, see how this runs on your hardware versus my hardware. And that's how you can kind of work out bugs and things of that nature within your program. So I'll just go ahead and toss this guy open. And basically I'm in my game full screen and I can do what I was doing earlier. Again, very basic, but you can see how I can just build something out really quickly. And this saved as an executable, so like I said, you could throw that on a flash drive or something and hand it to a friend and just ask them to play test it and make sure things work well on other systems and other environments. So Unity makes it very simple to do all these things, especially in the game design realm. But as I was saying, it's so easy to drop really any program that you use that is able to render out an FBX, like a 3D model, you can bring into Unity and use it. So it's really beneficial for that. And at the price point, there's really nobody else that matches it, because like I was saying, game engines are very expensive, especially when you go into professional ones like Unreal and things like that. It's just, you start talking 6-7 figures to just get the thing to use it. Unity is just very cheap and easy to just grab a hold of and get used to. But on that note, I want to talk about training resources, because obviously with something like this, you want to have a starting point to, if you're unfamiliar with it, you want to be able to learn it and really grab onto it. Unity has, well, there's the API reference for the scripting, so if you need to learn all the coding, you can do it real quickly here. A lot of that's kind of just hands-on, trial and error, but you'll find a lot of help online. Unity provides their own tutorials. They have 3 pretty in-depth ones, one about iOS, iPhone game development, one for a 3D platform game, one for like a 3D arcade style racing game. They have 2D gameplay tutorials, light mapping in Maya, how to bake in good light maps, bring them into Unity, make it look real nice. Unity has a lot of their own stuff, but the thing I find really cool about Unity, but kind of just game design in general, is it's a skill set that requires a lot of collaboration, and the majority of people who are in the game design field are very tech savvy. So if you go online and Google anything related to Unity, you're going to find thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of results, forum posts, threads. You're going to find so many things of people who've probably had the same exact issue you're having or have the same exact question, and there's hundreds of people who answer it. That's what's really cool about game design to me, is that it's a collaborative effort. So you have so many people helping each other out on just the internet, and there's just so many resources for you to use outside of Unity's first-party tutorials. There's tons of different websites. I basically learned how to use the program in about 2 weeks by going to this website called 3D Buzz. There's just a couple of guys who do these tutorial videos, and I thought they were just excellent. And if you go on YouTube and you look up Unity 3D tutorials, you're going to find tons of results. I mean, there's so many ways to learn the software and start understanding game design and development. And I think that's really cool in the training side of things. I had this question last time I did this webinar, was about skill level, specifically in education. What should the teacher know, as well as what should the students already know to get into something like this? I basically tend to say it's all about math. Teachers should be well versed in math disciplines, geometry, algebra, the basics, as well as, a big plus is trigonometry, physics, up to calculus if you're doing real high-end stuff. For the students, I mean, it really, I guess, depends on the age group or, what they're going for. But again, math is the big one. You just want to make sure they have a good understanding of 3D geometry and algebra and just logical problem solving, because that's a lot of what game design is, especially when you get into programming. That's all it is just logical programming and thinking. So that's the main skill I would tell people to have. You want to make sure you have a good understanding of how to use your computer, how to use your operating system. If you know a lot about hardware, that's kind of a plus too, because you can program your game or your demonstration in a more efficient way, so it runs good across multiple platforms. Programming knowledge is a plus, but I wouldn't say it's exactly necessary. If you go around online and you look at what people say, there's actually a lot of people who are maybe teenagers or like 13 years old who are learning programming by using Unity, because it really is quite simple, and there's so many outlets on the internet and other places to actually learn your way around these things. So if your student doesn't know programming, I wouldn't say it's necessarily an issue, because they can really learn it. Although I would recommend that they have some programming experience, but like I said, I wouldn't say it's like a prerequisite. And more specifically, if they do have programming experience, object-oriented programming languages are the better option when you're dealing with game design like this, especially if they have experience in C++, they're probably going to have no problem picking up on the JavaScript, or vice versa. If they have experience in Java, they're going to have no problem grabbing onto JavaScript. So those are kind of the things I would recommend in terms of skill level. I think that's about all I was going to talk about at this point. I think I will go ahead and hand it over to Lance right now to talk about, how much Unity costs and things of that nature. So let me go ahead and switch it over to him real quick. I got to find you on the list, Lance. There you are. And
okay. The conference is now in conversation mode. The conference is now in presentation mode.
Okay, everyone, I'm hoping that you can hear me, so if someone can just type in a yes or some sort of comment to let me know. Yes, 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 okay, that will work. Frank hears me, and Brett can hear me, what have you. Okay, once again, my name is Lance Zurich. I am one of the educational representatives over here at Studica. And although most of you are probably familiar with us because you've probably dealt with this, probably one of your other educational representatives has emailed you about this. For those of you who may have found us on a blog or what have you, and or been told about this webinar, basically what Studica is Studica is a company that's been committed to providing solutions to the educational community for about 27 years now. And probably pretty much from the beginning, our focus has really been in the design end of things, and especially with game development, game design becoming so important in such a big field, that's been a major concern for ours, and of course, products like Unity fit right in there. Also, another thing that's kind of a sideline for us is getting into things that will help to support what everybody's calling STEM education. Granted, this probably applies a little bit more to really like middle school and high school, but it's something that basically just, anything that's going to help provide, whether it be math, physics, engineering types of, background to students is obviously very encouraged and helpful right now. So anyway, jumping along here, Unity education applications. Okay, I'm going to kind of summarize in the next few slides a lot of what Mark had just said here, but basically some of the reasons that you want to use Unity. First off, it's the perfect addition to any animation or game design program. So if you're already doing something with animation or game design or design of any sort, if you're using Autodesk products, obviously, if you're using Pixelogic or Maxon or anything of that nature, it's going to fit right in there. And obviously, it's ideal for teaching game development on its own. If you're not already doing something but you would like to have a game design program, Unity is the perfect basis for that. As Mark probably touched on in there, some of the things that you're going to cover with Unity are going to be design, development, 3D modeling, concept art, programming, audio, and storytelling. And once again, as he said, it's a collaborative. Game design is a collaborative effort. Just like the motion picture industry, it takes a lot of different people who are skilled in a lot of different areas to do this. And so it's about teamwork when you're doing game design, and it's about having all these different skill sets. So it can really work in a wide range of areas. More reasons for using Unity, as I touched on, as Mark touched on before, it's more than just teaching about game design. It's about teaching things that relate to STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So when Mark talked about things like algebra, geometry, physics, trigonometry, calculus, all these types of things, this is all going to help support STEM. And obviously you have to be, as Mark mentioned, if you're going to be proficient and successful in game design, it's good for you to have a background in these things and have a working knowledge of them. More reasons for using Unity. Now this can be used, the skills that you're going to gather from using Unity can be used in a lot of different careers, not just the game industry, but obviously high-tech jobs in many types of fields. Things, as he mentioned, architectural engineering, where you can do even virtual walkthroughs on things, advertising, of course, industrial design, programming. Actually, we have a school that's currently working with us right now that's been using Unity for biomedical engineering that they're doing for different types of simulations of how medical devices work in the human body. So literally, I mean, with Unity, anything that can be conceived of can be simulated in Unity. So it's wide open as far as that goes. All right, Unity is widely used in industry. As you'll see over here, there's over 700,000 registered users right now, and you'll see some of the company logos up there, people like NASA, Disney, Warner Brothers. There's quite a list of them. So this is, once again, it's a pretty widely used product. It's something that if your students are using it in the classroom, in whether it be high school or college or what have you, this is a program they can very well go on and use in the real world. Okay, Unity Pro 3 and Autodesk in the classroom. as Mark once again mentioned, using Unity Pro 3 in combination with such tools as 3ds Max and Maya and some of the other programs that are included in things like the Autodesk Entertainment Creation Suite, which is just one of the many Autodesk programs that we offer, this will provide you with a lot of the core tools that you're going to really can use in your school to develop a video game design and development program. If you're already using these things, once again, as he was showing you, it's easy to drag and drop, assets that you create, and whether it be Maya or 3ds Max, right into a Unity environment. And of course, if you're not, these are two tools that will work very well together. We offer them both. Of course, also I should mention, once again, that Unity will also work with other animation programs. If you're using or would like to use something like, let's say, Pixelogic ZBrush, if you would like to or are using something like Maxon Cinema 4D, it will work with programs like this. Basically, what you're looking at is pretty much any kind of program that's going to be using a .fbx, .dae, .3dx, .dxf, or .obj type of format. This will work well with that. Okay, here's what everybody's waiting to hear. Unity Pro 3 higher education pricing options. First off, there are annual and perpetual licensing options available. So either way, whether you just want to feel it out right now and you just want to go with a one-year term license, or if you're looking at perpetual licenses, we have both options available. Now, as far as pricing, right off the top, pricing for higher education starts with License 1 at 50% off of retail. And then basically as you get into deeper discounting with multiple seats, and you can get into some really significant discounts when you're doing any sort of lab of 20 or more, and then it can go up from there. The other thing that we should mention is that there are also faculty commercial versions available. Basically what you have is there's a version that's used in the classroom, which is your standard educational licensing. The faculty commercial version, which we'll be happy to talk to you about one-on-one, is basically something for instructors. We make them available in units of 1 to 2, where an instructor can use something that for all purposes is basically comparable to a full commercial license. And also, because we mentioned it, we also offer, of course, the Autodesk Entertainment Creation Suite 2013 right now. This is also available in annual and perpetual licensing options, and it includes the full licenses of some of the programs we mentioned and some that we didn't. 3ds Max, Maya, Motion Builder, Softimage, Mudbox, and Sketchbook Designer. And we do offer discounts when you purchase it along with Unity, so if you're interested, contact us for a quote today. And I should mention here about quoting. You can go about getting a quote from us one of two ways. At the end of this little slide presentation, you'll see my name, you'll see Mark's name, you'll see our email addresses. If you don't know who your educational representative is, you could email one of us and we will put you in contact with that person. If you do know, and it should have been probably the person who sent you the email about this webinar, you can contact them directly. Or if you don't have an educational representative, you can also go to our Studica website, which of course is www.studica.com. Go right along the left-hand side underneath the big orange box there, and you'll see a number of buttons with different products highlighted, Autodesk, Fisher Technic, what have you, and you will see a button for Unity, and you can go right there, click on that. It will take you to a page with all of the Unity options that are available, and all you have to do is just go to the higher education section, and you can click on the product, the quantity that you might be interested in, and just fill out your contact info, and we can get back to you very quickly with pricing, answer any questions you might have, what have you. Okay, the other thing that we're doing is for any educational purchase that currently occurs for either Unity or Autodesk licensing, we are including 1 free month of access to Digital Tutors. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Digital Tutors, basically what it is, it's a website that offers 24/7 access to a large, actually the world's largest online computer graphics training library. And basically the training changes. There's new options every month, and you have access to project files and other exclusive learning tools. And basically it'll help you master things like animation, graphic design, game development, other computer graphic software quickly and effectively. Not only can you use it for things like learning about, obviously, Unity and Autodesk, which is what we've been talking about here today, but you can also learn about products from Adobe, Pixelogic, NextLimit, Maxon, Luxology, and various other things of that nature. And as you'll see at the bottom of the screen, this is not only used in education, it's used by companies like MTV or EA, Universal Studios, what have you. Basically, the people who make the things that you're using, who make the technology, who make the entertainment that you're using, use digital tutors. Okay, as our special bonus for you for being nice enough to attend our webinar today, we have a special offer for you. It's the Unity Pro University Teacher Training Pack. What this pack includes is one-year license of each of the 4 products, the Unity Pro 3 license, the Unity Team license, Unity Android Pro, and Unity iOS Pro license. So you get a WinMac, it's a hybrid, a WinMac download of each of these, plus you get 1 month of access to digital tutors, online training, and our special webinar-only price, only for those of you who have attended today, is $999. And you'll see the URL is right there at the bottom of the page if you want to copy it down. If not, you can, of course, get access to that in our follow-up after. And on that note, I'd like to say thank you very much for attending today's webinar. And of course, please contact us directly for more information or to speak through a dedicated educational representative. If that's me, there's my email address, there's my phone number. You can contact me. If you have any technical questions, of course, contact Mark. He would be able to assist you with that. Same token, as I said, if you do know who your rep is, it should be the person who emailed you. You can just email them back if you have any questions, would like any quotes on any of these products we've mentioned or
Sorry,
any that we haven't.
Cut Lance off
we would
there.
be more than
But
happy to help you out.
we'll do a Q&A right now.
On that note,
if you have any
I'm going to
questions
pass this
about
back
anything
to
we're talking
Mark
about here, feel free to
for-
use the chat
The
menu
conference
to
is now in
ask
conversation
it, and I'll be
mode.
reading it, and I will try and
The
answer them as
conference
best
is
as I
now
can.
in presentation mode.
On one note, I was reading what Viewer78 was saying in the chat here about how his school is looking to cancel their game development curriculum, even though they want to push STEM. And I linked him to a Daily Mail article that came out a couple months ago about a gamified chemical synthesis program where users were able to collaborate on creating, well-known chemicals and pretty much like pharmaceutical companies do to create drugs and things like that. And they created a potential, experimental chemical that might be able to use to be able to treat AIDS. And they did it through a video game that was developed by it was some university somewhere. I don't know all the details, but I posted the link in the chat. It's real interesting. So if you got a bunch of naysayers at your school saying you don't need game design, that it's useless, just show them some of these things and let them know that it can be used for STEM and it can greatly enhance the benefits of STEM for your students. Lance says that we had a question about using 2D or Photoshop files. Unity 3D is primarily a 3D engine that specializes in 3D development. However, you can get a 2D API to use. So it's not out of the question to utilize 2D items. However, I'm not entirely positive you can bring in, say, a 2D drawing like a DWG file from AutoCAD or something and drop that into your game. I'm almost positive there's at least one way to do it. You could probably bring that into 3ds Max since Max works with DWGs, and you can probably export it as an FBX file and create some sort of level out of it. So I'm sure it's possible to use Photoshop files and things of that nature. That's not something I've specifically looked into, but I'm sure a quick Google search, like I said, you'll find tons of people asking the same question, and I'm sure there's an answer there. Viewer 51, I have a perpetual 3.5 license. Any idea for iOS Pro license to go with it? Is the iOS license compatible with build 5.1? The iOS license compatible with iOS build 5.1? Is that what you're asking? Yeah, it should be, because Unity keeps up to date with their with all of their, what do you want to call it, engines. Yeah, it should be compatible with the latest iOS. I'm almost positive as soon as the new ones come out that they have their license is updated properly for it. Why use JavaScript if you knew Java and C# is almost identical? Well, in Unity, it primarily uses Boost, C#, and JavaScript, and I just decided to use JavaScript myself just because Java was something familiar, and I just thought it was pretty easy to use. You can use whichever one you want, and again, like I was saying, supposedly you can make it work with C++. I haven't looked into that specifically, but I read into it a little bit, and people were saying you can make that happen. I know C++ is like the standard for most games, but I don't know if there's something new on the horizon coming out. I'm not a huge programmer, so I'm not all up on that. So, but yeah, the JavaScript works pretty well. And again, it's basically Unity's own version of JavaScript. I find it really easy to get a hold of and start using. Any deals for iOS Pro to go with my 3.5 license? Lance, do you have any say on that? I think he's typing. Okay. Well, I am not getting too many questions here. Hopefully that means I covered things better. So if you got any questions, just feel free to ask. Got a couple minutes here. If not, I'll probably just end it, and you all have our information. If you want to contact us, feel free to shoot us an email and ask any other questions you might have, or if you have any pricing questions, or maybe you want us to talk to your administrators, your purchasing people, or anything like that, just let us know. And also keep in mind, I've been recording this whole thing, so once I'm done here, I'm going to make sure it's all good, and we'll be putting it on YouTube. And once it's up there, all of you will be getting a follow-up link with the video. So if you're trying to convince your purchasing department or your administrators not to cancel your game development curriculum, feel free to use the link to show them and try and sell them on it. So, let's see, Veer51 says, if I get an iOS license, will I get the tutoring for a month also? Yes, according to Lance. So, all right. Well, I guess with that, we'll conclude it right on time at 1 my time for everybody else and wherever else you guys are connecting from. So thank you all for coming out, and be on the lookout for our follow-up email, and have a great day. Thanks.